Hi, everybody.
Hey, we're live.
So,
And it's not showing me the comments. Oh, I got them back up. Okay, good.
all right. So my name is Mark Scheeren. This is Michelle Dunbar. We wrote The Freedom Model for Addictions with Stephen Slate, and that's Matt Sparks and Daniel Pilorge. Matt Sparks is in the upper right-hand corner, and Daniel is down below, and being the foundation of the three of us. All right. So every couple of weeks, we go through and we look at questions that people have sent us via Facebook and different media, and we collect them, and then we answer them, and we comment on them, and people seem to find it very helpful.
Yeah.
And I've been helping people with substance use problems for a little over 32 years. Michelle has as well. And this is a very big deal, what we're doing today, because we're passing the torch to Matt and Daniel. So they'll be taking over the duties of the Facebook Lives for the Freedom Model. Part of what we're trying to do is let it grow, let the movement of the Freedom Model grow. And these guys are the next generation of researchers to sort of bring it to the world.
Yes, I wanted to just remind everyone about this incredible new service that we offer called the Freedom Model International membership. You can, when you go there, you can get access to, or when you join, you can get access to the Freedom Model online program, the Freedom Model for the Family online program, which is brand new. You will be able to, if you like this forum and you like to be able to talk to Mark and I and ask us questions, our first live 2-hour Q&A webinar, private members only Q&A webinar, will be next Wednesday from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. And we're just going to kind of go on there, and if there's no questions, we'll just be there for 2 hours waiting for people to come on and ask us questions.
That's right.
So if you are a member now, or you are thinking about joining, now would be a great time to do that. And you can talk to us live for 2 hours if you want to. And so go to online.thefreedommodel.org, and for less than $40 a month, you can have access to all these great things and get really great information about how to stop an addiction and how to move on with your life without endless recovery, without endless meetings and therapies. You're not broken.
That's right.
You can change, and it's just such a tremendous value.
Yeah,
To be able to do that.
It's taken 32 years of research and development, and we put it in one place, and you can learn from home.
Yeah.
In the privacy of home. And that's a pretty amazing thing. I'm always, when I think back to when we started, there wasn't even cell phones,
Right.
We communicated via payphone. You had to stop your car and call from a payphone. And, now here we are talking to the
ourselves.
world. Yeah, I know.
How did you live without cell phones?
How did you remember to eat and do stuff?
I don't know.
Right.
It was a struggle, Matt. It was a struggle.
Right.
The
How'd you go
was
places
real.
you didn't know? Because
how did you learn anything?
We just wallowed in the mud, dude. That's what we did. And drank a lot of booze.
It's so
Stuck
true.
needles in our arms and mud puddles and stuff.
I mean, if there's nothing else to do.
Oh my God.
All right. So let's I do want to say something about the membership though. Also, you also get our monthly newsletter. You also get 4 new video lessons every month.
Right. Whose lesson was supposed to go up this week? I have to look at the schedule.
Yeah. So that's right. It's Daniel's.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That's
and it's
right.
good
I think
too.
I'm next week.
It's good.
Yes.
You'll like Daniel's. It's good. All right. But so yeah, you get an amazing amount of information and a solution to addiction, and also a solution for your family to adjust.
Oh yeah.
To maybe a person moving on from an addiction can be a big adjustment for a family. So we also have a part in there that is a 5-part seminar series on why people should not go to AA or a 12-step group, and where it came from, and why it's important to move on from the 12 steps
Yes.
as well. Okay.
So the questions we have, like this first one that we have is really not a question, but it's a really good point for discussion. And I just learned from Daniel that it was actually posted over a year ago, and then somebody just commented on it, but it's so fantastic. The way that the reasoning is behind it, that I wanted to talk about it and share it with everybody. So it goes like this. Alzheimer's disease proves addiction is not a disease. Fresh out of college and looking for a job that would allow me to help people, I signed up for the Conifer Park Case Manager Internship Program to be a case manager at a 28-day rehab. I fell completely into the disease model of addiction and the 12-step program. After completing the internship and working with addicts for years, I moved on and started working for a social model adult day program for people who suffer from Alzheimer's disease and other memory loss disorders. Since first starting to work with Alzheimer's patients in 1991, I've encountered many individuals whose family described heavy substance abuse on the part of their loved one now suffering from the memory loss. Here's the interesting part. Even in the early stages of their memory loss, these people's substance abuse simply stopped. Even if they were still able to order a drink at a wedding or able to manage buying items from a supermarket, even if they were still able to discuss the flavor of their favorite drink or recall a story about being drunk, the compulsion to drink just was not present. The conclusion that makes the most sense to me is that the complex set of neural connections created in their brains based on their continued choice to drink, note here the word choice, had begun to break down. Even if ingesting their favorite beer, the memories of the choices that led to the substance abuse had been damaged to the point of no longer being functional. The substance itself did not reach out and grab them, and their bodies did not respond to the drink or drug by craving more. They could have been drinking water or soda pop. Now contrast this with people with Alzheimer's disease who are also diabetic. If they take in too much sugar, they become ill. They have a true disease that affects the way they process sugar. This is not a choice on their part, but a part of their physiology that is faulty and not based in a set of choices that have been forgotten. I no longer think that addiction is a disease. It's a set of choices.
So I think the important part here is there's some parts of it that are a little bit wonky, but here's the point I think that's important here. And that is that what the person's talking about is that if they don't have access to their mind, which is what Alzheimer's does, it takes away the person's ability to have their full faculty of mind and memories in their mind. Then if we take mind out of the equation, we find that addiction goes away.
It goes away.
So if it were a disease, a legitimate disease, if somebody has Alzheimer's and cancer, for example, or diabetes as they used in this example, we see that the cancer continues. We see that the diabetes continues. Liver disease would continue. Skin cancer would continue. Everything of the body would continue. But yet, their drinking habit or their drugging habit goes away because it's a product of the mind. It's not a product of their body. So this brain-centered idea that they get a little bit mixed up here between brain and mind, which can complicate the argument. But here's the point. Without a thinking apparatus, there is no addiction. So without somebody's drive or preference, there is no desire.
You forget it's something you like to do.
That's right. So Matt and Daniel, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is really interesting because I spent a lot of time studying neuroscience, studying Alzheimer's in school, but no one ever made this connection to alcoholism or drug use or whatever.
It's interesting.
If you think about it, whenever we choose to ingest a substance, what we're doing is we're making a decision based on the information that we have, like you said. And Alzheimer's, for those that don't know, disrupts, it causes basically cell death in the brain. And the part of the brain, or one of the parts of the brain called the hippocampus, which is involved in memory, can become disrupted. So in a way, it could be changing basically the person's perspective because they're losing touch with their faculties and bits of information that may have informed their decision to use drugs to begin with. So this makes perfect sense under our model.
Yeah, it really does.
Daniel, any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, when I read it, it reminded me of a story of someone that at the center where I used to work. And this guy was like super anxious. Like you're talking crazy anxious. He'd come and annoyed me to get extra medication like all the time. Um, and one day he went off and got drunk and fell off the balcony flat on his face. He was in a coma for a couple of months. It might have been a couple of weeks. I don't remember too well, but he was in a coma and he suffered from massive memory loss. And I saw him when he got out of the hospital, and he didn't have anxiety anymore. You know,
Right.
all the
Wow.
stuff that made him anxious, he'd completely forgotten about it. And so I used to think of this as an example of how to get rid of anxiety. But the problem being that like whacking people with a bat or throwing them off balconies is the best way. But I found it really insightful into anxiety because, of course, a lot of people will look at anxiety the same way, that there's some sort of disorder with someone, that there's something functionally wrong with their brain. But no, the guy forgot what made him so anxious, and he stopped being so anxious.
That's right. So in each of these scenarios, whether it's the disease or falling or a baseball bat, what we're disrupting is not just the neurons in the brain tissue. We're disrupting the connection to their memories, which also sit in the mind, because in the mind is where we experience life and where we frame something. So without the framework of, oh, I should be anxious about this topic, we're not.
Yeah.
Isn't that, it's fascinating.
Well, yeah, without the interpretation
That's right.
that this thing
You're like
is
losing
going,
the lens.
yeah,
you're
that
looking
this,
at it
this
through.
thing is going to cause harm to me.
Yeah.
You know, the thing that hasn't happened yet.
Yeah.
That's what anxiety comes
Like imagine
from.
if you forgot all the times that we saw on television or in movies that someone drank whenever they were upset. If that was just suddenly erased and we didn't have that association anymore, it probably wouldn't
Yeah.
occur to us at all.
That's exactly right. Well, isn't that what we're trying to do in the freedom
That's
model
exactly
with
what
the
we're doing.
information? So I think we're a lot more kind to not hit people with baseball bats or throw them off balconies, but instead they can come to a retreat or do it from home. And it's just a
That's
matter
the
of
Express
learning.
program.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, next one. To all group members, this is in our group, the Freedom Model group. Is anyone aware of a clear and concise positioning statement for the new Freedom Model of recovery? Here's an example of a good positioning statement by Nike to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. Individuals that have alternative views to today's AA recovery world are subject to some strong backlash, and you all know what I'm talking about if you belong to this group. In my opinion, we can't, in all cases, just allow the AA group members and the recovery industry to have their views unchallenged in every instance. The absolute gold standard AA response from my experience is always the following. Why would you go against a program that has helped millions? Just take what you want and leave the rest. It's free and there are no locks on doors. Why would you want to hurt people, etc., etc.? I'm definitely not asking for term papers, endless rants, links, and videos on our views, probably seen and read most. I'm looking for a clear and quick response for an AA cult member meeting in aisle 4 in the local grocery store. Any help is much appreciated.
Well, I know for me, I've never been able to articulate what we do in a statement.
In one statement, I know.
It's difficult.
I racked my brain about this one.
Daniel, have you ever come up with I mean, we have the tagline to escape the treatment and
Yeah,
recovery
but
trap, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know how user friendly it is, but what I marked down was our purpose is to dispel the myths of voodoo pharmacology and the cult of powerlessness.
Oh, wow, that's
Nice.
fantastic.
That's good.
The problem being, of course, that then people go, well, what's voodoo pharmacology, and
I
then
know.
what do you mean by the
Right.
cult
It
of
always
power?
brings up another question, right? Whenever we define it, because there's so
Yes.
much you have to address to even begin to sort of make sense about what we're trying to do initially.
You know, what's
Yeah.
funny
Well,
is I try to go to, when I meet somebody in aisle 4 and we get into the discussion, I can remember I met a girl that I went to high school with at the local fair. And she said, I went to rehab, you know, it's a disease. And I said, no, it's not. I said, no, it's not. And then she looked wide eyed and she goes, I thought that. It's such bullshit, isn't it? You know, and I think that I've had that experience 100 times.
Oh, at least.
So I think that if we start with, you know, that's just nonsense. You're gonna find out an argument, but most of the time people are like, huh, I've thought that. It's like the dirty little secret. I've thought it wasn't a disease too.
For a long time I avoided it. People would ask me what I did. I can remember when I went to my 25th high school reunion, which now was 10 years ago. But people were like, so you run a rehab, right? And I'm like, no, I don't run a rehab. I run a retreat, blah, blah, and I would say, I just didn't want to get into it with people. That's why I would avoid it for a really long time. But what I tell people is I usually go to like one statement. I usually ask people, did you ever smoke? And like 50 to 75% of people that are my age used to smoke.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And they'll say, yeah, I used to smoke. And I'm like, did you have to go to meetings to quit smoking? And they're like, no. I'm like, did you have to do it? Now, 10 years ago, you could ask that question, but now, like, there's all kinds of things for quitting smoking that people don't need, but they think they need because now
now they've created the trap.
they've created it. So, but back then that worked for me. Was most people that smoke quit smoking and they need nothing for it. Well, it's the same with any other substance. And so I just show people how they stop, like just for how they stop. And they're like, well, it's a rehab. And I'm like, no. No, there's no powerlessness involved. There's no meetings. There's none of that. There's just you making a decision.
So you say all that in aisle 4 at the grocery store?
All that in aisle 4 at the grocery store. No, so he found our mission statement, which is not a quick and concise statement either.
I know.
And I should have printed it so I could read it, but I didn't. So I'm sorry. But our goal is to show everyone, like if I'm talking to somebody in aisle 4 in the grocery store, my answer is, my answer is, what we do here is we show people that they can be okay, that they're not broken, and that substance use is no different than any other decision they're going to make in life.
Yeah. Anything else, guys?
Well, I had a couple of people ask me specifically what I do, and I just told them, listen, I'm a teacher and my class is drug mythology. And that really opens up their ears. They're like, what's that? And then that's when, I can start actually discussing what we teach.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, as soon as the word mythology comes in with drugs, people instantly get curious because they're like, what are you talking about? Because they think they know a lot about drugs, but deep down they know they don't know that much. Right. So when you start talking about mythology, it opens up their mind. They're like, oh. So I found that to be a very useful answer.
That's a really good answer.
That is a good answer.
I found a lot of times, almost regardless of what you tell them, just as long as it is like a true bit of the program, people want to know more. Because normally it comes out as something that's so contradictory. People are like, wait, hold up, excuse me. And then, before you know it, there's a line of people in aisle 4 and you're trying to break it down for everybody. Normally, almost regardless of what we say, as long as it's actually from our program, people normally want just that idea expanded on in some way.
Yeah. And I think one of the reasons I avoided it too for a long time was we were getting beat up so much.
Well, yeah, when you get beat up for 20 years, it gets tiring. I used to say they'd say, what do you do for a living? I say real estate. It would shut shit down so fast. I'd just move.
That's like selling insurance.
Yeah. Now there's the other side of it too.
I literally used to say that.
There's the other side of it too, is if I am at a party or something, and I'm at a party with people, that aren't involved here. Like I have a woman that I'm still friends with from high school, and she has this Christmas party every year, big Christmas party, whole ton of people go. And if I say what I do, then inevitably I do have 3 or 4 people that are talking to me the entire night about my job.
Yeah.
Whether for one of 2 reasons, because they themselves have a problem or somebody they love has a problem. And most of the time I'm willing to do that.
Yeah. And I was just thinking, what do I say? And I had to go back into scenarios and I say, I show people they don't have a disease, but more importantly, that they can move on with their life.
Yeah.
and be free of all this nonsense. No meetings, no nothing. So I kind of throw it out there and they're like, oh, that's different. Moving on is a funny term because people always catch that,
Yes.
and because in rehab, you never do. You never move on. You're always trapped,
It was all I wanted when I first stopped drinking was just to
know.
be quote unquote
Just
normal.
to be a person, right?
Yeah, just
That's all
be
you want.
normal.
I was obsessed with it, and it's the only thing I couldn't have. And people
Yeah.
kept telling me that
Exactly.
like me wanting to have it was going to get me killed, basically.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like you can't trust yourself. You can't.
It's the
trust your
great
own
obsession,
thinking.
right? And,
Yeah.
and then what they
Mhm.
call it?
Yeah. To be normal.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep
All right.
going.
The next question. Oh, this is such a good one. And it's good that we get an opportunity to talk about it. All right. Hi guys. Just a question. I was reading about the Freedom Model St. Jude retreat earlier, and it came up that Scientology was a part of it. Now, I know you can't believe everything you read, but honestly, Scientology is the biggest cult in the world with AA not far behind. And I want no part of either. Would someone please explain why I read this? Thanks.
Well, years ago.
I mean, that was probably 25 years ago that was
a long
written.
time ago. I think that there was the Tin Hat crowd that looped us in with Narconon, the Scientology front group rehab chain. And Narconon was going through a huge bunch of nightmarish scandals where people were dying in their inadequate detoxes and things like that. And so because we were at that time the only alternative program, Narconon had adopted and grabbed a couple of our research papers and started posting that stuff.
Yes, on their sites.
And then at one point they changed their number. They grabbed a hold of some of our content, said they were St. Jude's, and used their phone number and rerouted people that were needing help to their facilities. So there's this court thing, and it wasn't really that big a deal. It was really super sad for the people getting fleeced by these dirtballs, but it automatically pulled us into their dirty little world. And then the Tin Hat crowd got a hold of it, and my God, on the internet, they go ballistic. So for a while, we had to really contend with
slanderous
stuff,
misinformation.
And then you're put in a position where you're on defense. No, we're not Scientology, which means to most people, oh, you are a Scientologist.
Right. It's like,
oh my God, this is a nightmare. But we got through it, and we moved on with our life.
Well, it was very misunderstood because for a long time, that's what non-12 step meant to people was that you're a cult of some kind. And really the rehab industry itself is nasty. It is, these people are shisty, like the people that market and sell rehab to people use all kinds of nasty tactics. It's just the Wild West on the internet was for a long time. Yeah. It's not gotten any better. If anything, it's gotten worse because now you actually have to pay
to play.
You have to, there's now it's complete. The organized crime loop is complete online with rehabs. And so we are a threat to the entire system. Because what we're saying is
you never have to go to rehab.
You don't need it. Like nobody needs it. And short of, medical detox, right? Like you can medical detox is at most a 1 to 2 weeks. That's it. Yeah. But you don't need to go to a 30-day program or God forbid, a year-long program. Or, I mean, I know we've known people that have been in therapeutic communities and sober living for years.
Oh yeah. Members of my family did. And I was in for 18 months.
Yeah. So yeah,
Absolutely
you don't
terrible.
need any of it. So that's, we're kind of taking a system that's been pretty well entrenched now for at least 50 years. The treatment industry really flourished in the 80s and it's continued to grow and get bigger. And there's more money put into it, not less. And the problem continues to get worse.
Yeah. Yep. You guys have anything to say about old
Scientology?
I didn't even know that story. So thanks for that was this is the first time I've ever heard that. That's both horrible and incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was wild. It was
Oh
miserable.
my gosh, the
though.
stuff we went through,
Yeah.
and in the first 30 years, really,
Yeah.
right up until we released the Freedom Model, has been unbelievable. People would not believe our stories.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
okay. So yeah,
And
no,
guys jump in at any point.
yeah. And no, we are no way. I'm going to say it officially. I said it online. We are no way. We've never been a part of Scientology. And we never will be. And there is no part of it.
Yeah.
No part of
not
it.
even remotely. We think they're crazy. Let me just say it.
Let's
I think
just put it out there.
Official
completely-
position.
I'm
They're
not
not
trying to be
crazy.
offensive to Scientologists
I
out
don't
there,
even
but I
care,
think
'cause
you're
it's-
nuts.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy.
There's because nothing about Scientology is rooted in actual science.
Oh, here comes
Okay.
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, here he comes. All right. This is a very long one, so I'm going to tell you right now, but it's so full of great stuff that I didn't want to cut any of it out. This is from one of our group members. My family are very concerned regarding me departing from the cult. Most of them have never had a substance abuse problem, and all they know about recovery is what our media and society has brainwashed them to believe. They think I'm sick, and that every day that goes by with me not attending meetings and doing the steps makes my total collapse more and more inevitable. Here's the thing. They couldn't be more wrong. And for the first time in a long while, I truly feel alive and in tune with myself and the world around me. My life has been gifted back to me thanks to the Freedom Model. I'm not ashamed on a daily basis for feeling basic human emotions. No power tripping sponsor constantly telling me what's good for me. Not having to reschedule and cancel my hobbies that I enjoy so I can attend long and pointless meetings. Truth be told, AA made me suicidal. They made me believe that I was sick, deviant, and an all-around horrible person. My sponsor even told me once that I have a demon inside of me that is fueled by my consumption of alcohol and drugs, and the only way for me to function in society was by keeping it starved and fragile. I actually fucking believed that shit, walking around every day trying to keep it tamed. They also made me believe that I could only be redeemed by God and by living the rest of my life as an obedient non-thinker that has to be constantly reminded of regrettable events and deeds from the past. Soul-sucking shit, man, but here I am. I have cut ties with my sponsor and everyone on my contact list that has any affiliation with AA, and I have not been attending any meetings in the last 7 months. I could not be happier with my decision, and as previously stated, it feels like I have gotten my life back. My only issue is in regards to my family. I forgive their ignorance and nonsensical thinking regarding addictions and the multi-billion-dollar lie that society and mainstream media has sold them, as even I was sold on it once. A lie so big that it cannot come to truth without burning a massive hole in the pockets of our governments and private-owned treatment programs. Re-education and admitting fault will therefore never be in their interests. But what I can't forgive is their refusal to accept me without the false branding of me being a hopeless addict, and that my disease-stricken brain has to be monitored at all times by a cult that demands my soul, my time, loyalty, self-worth, and hard-earned money in return. Some weeks ago, I gathered the courage to tell my sister that I could not drive her around town as I had grabbed myself a drink earlier. This was not something that we had planned. She just called me on a whim and assumed that I would be up for the task. She hung up the phone in my ear and blocked me on all platforms. And since that day, my mother has been constantly calling and doing checkups on me. Last night, she even called the local hospital because I didn't return her calls as I fell asleep early that night after work. I have understandably put them through a lot of pain and suffering in the past due to my choice to use drugs and alcohol in a very destructive way. But I've apologized countless times, and I've tried my hardest to make amends to all those who've been unfortunate enough to have been struck by the collateral damage that my use brought in the past. Even to this day, I take full responsibility for the past and the future. But I want to move on. I have to move on. It just hurts that I have to label myself with a fictional disease to be eligible for their care and affection. Going back to AA is not even a thought I've had until now. A thought fueled by the fear of being disowned and distrusted by the people I love the most. Has anybody in this group successfully re-educated their family and friends regarding addiction? I figured that with time, they can all see that my destructive ways of using alcohol and drugs hopefully is a thing of the past, but I feel so lonely, and I know that if I cave and go back to AA, everything will be all right in their eyes.
Okay. So Matt, what's your thought on this? I think we lost Daniel.
Yeah.
My thought is that I think I could
Oh,
have
he's
written
gone
this
back.
in 2018. It's almost like somebody time traveled to here and delivered it. I remember reading this post whenever it was written.
Yeah.
I admire your prose, dude. It was very well written.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to read the whole thing.
It almost felt like a preface of a book
Yeah.
that I'm about to get into. This very, 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 very closely mirrors my experience because I basically I lived in secrecy for at least, I don't know if it was the first year, first 10 months, something like that. After I discovered the freedom model and quit going to meetings, I didn't have to block everyone associated with AA because they kind of pariahed me on their own as soon as they figured out I wasn't going to meetings. But in addition to believing in all the nonsense, I have a lot of family members that have been in AA for the majority of their lives. And my primary advice would be to not make moving on with your existence contingent on them coming on board, because it's possible that you could wait forever for that to happen. And it's just, if you know the truth and you're happy and you're doing what it is that you want to do and your family loves and supports you, at some point they will find a way to continue doing that, because they'll have to accept this is the new normal at some point. And just for a little bit of hope, in case you're feeling grim about your family's chances of changing their mind on this, I have my grandmother who was in AA for 40 years. Recently, she discovered that I was doing this, probably from my Facebook post or something like that. She actually went out and bought the book and read the thing and called and talked to me about it. And she was like, I think a whole bunch of this is right. I can't believe that someone had been in AA for 40 years. And,
God, that's
and this
amazing.
woman is older than 80 years old. If she can change her mind, I have faith that basically anyone can. It was like one of the most proud moments I think I've ever had talking to like a member of my extended family. So don't give up hope on that, but don't stake your continued existence on anyone, whether it be family or not, eventually coming around to this. More people will over time, but you don't want to get stuck there.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a great story.
That is a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Daniel, you have any thoughts on this? I don't know if you heard
No,
piece.
I heard the story, but I don't know why my phone just went out all of a sudden.
It's okay.
That was Tom Cruise.
Exactly. The Scientologists got to us. So yeah, no, I don't have a lot of direct experience with that because personally, my family, they were never part of this stuff. I even remember my old man when I started off. After a couple of months, he was like, "You don't have to keep on going to those meetings forever, do you?" And at that point, I'd kind of fallen into the trap. So I kind of like explained 2 or 3 things to him, and he was like, "Okay, just go to your meetings." And we never really discussed it further. But there is one thing that I think can be helpful. It's the idea. I think it's on page 21 or 23. I'd have to look at the book. But they make this differentiation between heavy drinkers and alcoholics. So you could always come back with this whole, well, maybe I was just a heavy drinker, and give them time to adapt to that idea. And then they're like, well, yeah, he wasn't a real alcoholic, so I guess he's okay. So it kind of like stops them from having to have this cognitive dissonance with their own experience and through 12-step. And at the same time, you could just walk away scot-free. I think it could be kind of risky to go that way as well. But it's definitely something to look into. I know, I've brought that up with people. I'm like, well, how do you know, like, if they're just a heavy drinker or an alcoholic?
Right. Like it might have been a phase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, because that's I noticed in discussion forums a lot of times, someone will bring up their experience of having quit on their own and moving on. And then people will say that, well, you weren't a real addict or you weren't a real alcoholic, to discount what they're saying. That's great. But what if we flip that around and use it to your advantage to just move on with your life?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I had similar experience as Matt. My family was entrenched in AA and therapy, in a lot of different ways, but everybody was catching on that it was destructive to the family fabric, right? By the time I came along, because I was the youngest of the 12 kids. So I had watched the destruction of the treatment industry throughout our family. And then after running the retreat here for 32 years, the St. Jude retreat, I've watched as people leave the retreat, they're all excited, they're free, they're in a completely different state of mind. And then they walk into a household with maybe 2 AA members or somebody that's been going to therapy, and the therapists and the AA members and the sponsors and all these people that are sitting behind the family whispering in their ear, when Jill gets home, make sure they have a good support network, and they have their meetings lined up, and they have an aftercare plan, because we all know they're weak. And so what happens is now the family is drilling into them, waiting for the shoe to drop, right? Which isn't very confidence inspiring. And frankly, it can piss a lot of people off and hurt them. So that's why we created the Freedom Model for the Family online program. That's exactly why we created that. We address this very problem. So for this person, I would say, have them get the Freedom Model online program for the family online program. And we go through lessons to teach the family and walk them to a place where they understand, oh, okay, this isn't a disease. Now I'm starting to understand they don't need meetings. And my role isn't to run their life anymore. I don't need to do that anymore. When you infantilize somebody because the treatment industry teaches you to do that as a parent, right? Mm-hmm. Or a loved one, that's they feel it's their responsibility to be supportive in this very narrow way. And what we do in our program is say, no, it's not your job. They're autonomous. They get to do what they want to do. And maybe you should look at your side of the fence and decide for yourself, what do you want in your household, and build some boundaries and figure that out. Now, what I'm describing is fairly complex, but Michelle designed all this years ago, and it's all there for the taking in both the membership and the Freedom Model International membership, or as a standalone program in the Freedom Model for the Family online program.
So I was actually having a talk with Danny. I think we were texting back and forth, and sometimes the families are harder to work with than substance users.
I think that's true sometimes.
Yeah.
Because their experiences trying to, take care of this person who, probably did some awful things and scared them to death. Maybe there's overdoses. I mean, you just don't know what all has been going on. And so their personal experience with this person tells them that they're weak. It reinforces all the stuff they're learning in the media, right? So to combat that, because in their mind, that's your experience is a powerful teacher. And so there's just enough truth it appearing in what they learn in the media. And then their loved one has these experiences, and they can't understand why their loved one would go back to using heroin when they've overdosed already.
Yeah.
Right. So they're thinking they can't be in their right mind. They have to have a disease. They have to be powerless. Or the person who's drinking and gets 3 DWIs, or he drinks and gets so drunk that you end up having to take them to the emergency room. So when you keep seeing these things, the way to combat that, it's so difficult for the substance user, because one of the supposed symptoms of the disease is denial. So you're as a substance user, you're no win. There is no argument you can make.
And that's why we created.
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
That's exactly why.
To say to the family, you walk out of the retreat here, or you get the Freedom Model, and you're
reading it, and you're making changes in your life.
And you're like, holy shit, I can be free. And I'm excited. And listen, Dad, listen to this, or listen to Mom. And then they start getting fearful. And then you say, hey, there's this program. Just watch 5 of the videos. Just watch the first 5 videos. Just get it and listen. And then that takes it out of the realm of the substance user having, or the past substance user in this case, having to do any teaching at all, because we do it for them,
Exactly. Exactly. Like, listen to these people. One of what I wrote on this particular post was I used to do when I did the family workshops, I did this lesson on bloodletting. And the thing about bloodletting in medicine is it was done for thousands of years.
Yeah.
I mean, the belief about what caused actual physiological disease was really strange. Like, to look at it now with all that we know, it was very strange. And so they believed that you had to bleed people to get out all the sickness, right? And so they would bleed people to death.
Right.
And then they would say, oh, this poor person died of that disease. We couldn't save them,
Right.
when literally they bled them to death.
Yeah, that's a logical error.
Talk about a logical error, but sometimes people get well, right? So that's my comparison. Addiction treatment is the bloodletting of today. And the families that I would have would like a light bulb would go off.
That analogy has worked for us for years.
Yeah, like
That's
I'm like
perfect.
just because something's accepted and just because some people do well.
Yeah, in spite of.
Right? It doesn't
And they
mean
can
that-
explain away the failures because it's written in such a way so that they can always explain somebody that is the exception
Exactly.
or passes away. Oh, it's a strong disease. It must have been a real alcoholic, or oh, guess he wasn't a real alcoholic.
Yeah.
Exactly. So definitely even reading the freedom model for the family, which if anybody is out there and they want their family, this is what I say to family. Do me, like, if you're genuinely concerned about me, do what your grandmother did, Matt. Like, just read the family book. I made it short enough to where it's a minimal investment of time. And if your family if they want to be in your life as much as you want to be in theirs, then they will take the time and they will read what you're doing. Now, I did do something. I did not tell my family for probably a few years that I had, after I started drinking moderately.
Mm-hmm.
I kept that very private. It wasn't that I was hiding things from them. It was just when I was around them, I didn't do it because I knew it worried them.
Yeah, and you don't want to deal with it.
I just didn't want to deal with it.
Not to deal with it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, like my husband and my children and the people in my immediate life that were around me all the time knew.
They were good with you getting hammered.
I was not getting
She
hammered.
wasn't. Shit face. Just shit. No.
No, but it wasn't something I flaunted out there to people when
You walked them into it.
I did. I had stopped going to meetings and then I was abstinent for like 10 years after I stopped going to meetings, so I really, for me, it was kind of a process of them seeing that I was going to be okay.
Yeah.
So
anything else, guys?
No,
I just concur with that. I know plenty of people that decided not to tell their family for some extended period of time just because, if you're working full time or like you've got a whole bunch of stuff
You're
going on,
busy.
you don't want to get hounded like relentlessly that you're going to die because you're not going to meetings. Like that's a pretty reasonable decision to make.
yeah, absolutely. Okay, then we have one more question. Thanks again for putting the Freedom Model together. As part of deprogramming, I'm trying to find the 5-part unauthorized history of 12-step. I've heard referenced a few times. Where should I look? Is it 5 certain episodes from the YouTube channel, or the podcast?
Okay, I just want to let everybody know that that's part of Freedom Model International membership now. That was originally just a free service. And usually what we do is we launch a lot of stuff for free, and then it'll go behind the paywall. And again, that's $39.95 a month. But that's all the stuff that you get. That just happens to be part of it.
Yeah. And if you go and you're watching those seminars, the first couple of seminars we did, like there's like 5 minutes at the beginning. We're gonna edit them, but right now there's like 5 or 6 minutes at the beginning where we're kind of like futzing around
Trying to figure out StreamYard.
So you can just fast forward through that.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. We're gonna cut it down.
We're gonna cut it down. But those are really great about the history of AA. And that's another great resource. Like if that person was a member, they could, pull up their phone and say, watch this video.
Yeah, exactly. So if the family's hounding you to go to meetings, those 5 seminars are a pretty definitive way to be able to say, watch this, and that is all you need to never go to a meeting again.
Yeah, and there's a whole lot of, we have articles and stuff online too about, you know, tell your family to Google as AA occult.
Yeah, and our blog on soberforever.net or thefreedommodel.org. Go to the blog. There's, I don't know, 150 articles we've written on the topic. I mean, there's a wealth of information.
Yeah, for sure.
Anything you guys have to say about that?
And do you guys
Yeah,
have any questions that maybe you wanted to bring up, or that you got? I should have asked you for that before this.
No, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, there's so many resources out there when it comes to like looking up A history and stuff.
Yeah, there are.
You know, I back even when I was still going to meetings, I remember like some of the old guys used to talk about orange papers.
Yep.
You know, and they're like, "Oh, he's such an asshole," blah blah blah, and they try to rip on the guy, right? Because like there was so much information on that website, and now it's archived. But if you know, there's still a couple of what do you call it?
That guy was pissed.
Yeah.
He was so mad. I remember it very vividly. But like, I get it. I was that mad.
Loved it. We loved it when that was like
massive stuff. And he even put up every single hate letter that he'd get, you know, and he'd reply on it. There's like pages and pages of his replies to the letters and stuff, and it's insane.
Yeah.
I remember coming
when
across
we
the
found
clean
that.
slate like years ago and reading it while I was trying to like do the meeting thing and being like, this guy's an asshole.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I remember it. Like the old guys in the rooms, that's what they'd say. There's this orange guy online, and he just keeps on
The orange guy, the
but
Cheeto
it's not
man.
like he has anything better, blah blah blah. So they again character assassination, to avoid the bottom line.
Yeah. And that archive does exist. I looked it up just last week.
The website's back up. I just looked.
Yeah.
The actual thing is up still.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Well, that I can remember when, I don't know who first showed me that website, but it was probably now more than 20 years ago.
Oh yeah, it's ancient. Well, he started.
It still looks the same too.
Yeah, it does. It's almost like in DOS or something.
Right.
Yeah,
But really that guy was pissed, and so it comes across that way, which turns some people off. But it's got a lot of factual stuff. There is some of it that's a little bit hyperbole throughout it, if you really understand the history. But there's a wealth of information in there. I think that Steve did a better job, a more objective job on. So what I tried to do with the seminar series in our membership site is boil it down to using AA's own words, using Bill Wilson's, the founder's own words, and say, he talked about making a pyramid cult. He didn't use the word cult, but he talked about pyramiding his membership and making it the Bill W movement, and everybody being like, that's psychotic. That's a bad idea. And hiding God throughout it and all the weird stuff that happens in AA. But I used his own words, and I used their own 990 tax forms, so you can see where the money goes, and because everybody says it's free, and how you pay with your soul and your time, and your life, with your allegiance to the cult. So all of that is described in their own words. So I use what they said, so it's not conjecture.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, I think we're done. So now let me tell everybody one more time how you can go to enroll in Freedom Model International. So you go to online.thefreedommodel.org. It is $39.95 a month. You have access to pretty much just about every service we offer, online service that we offer. And you can keep it for as long as you want, and as long as you feel like you need. And the thing about like what I was going to say about orange papers is we felt very much alone when we were leaving AA, and we were kind of heretics out there. And we had each other and a few other people. But even within our groups that we had started to form, we it was difficult. We had people that it terrified them where the direction we were heading. And to see the orange papers for me was like, okay, it was reassured me that we're not totally alone.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes.
and so that's what the Freedom Model International really is. That's what our YouTube channel does. That's what our podcast does.
That's the Addiction Solution Podcast.
You know, is you can leave AA and the whole world be damned. They all, you know, tout AA as being the only way. Not only is it not the only way, it isn't a way. It isn't a way to freedom.
It's a way to bondage. It's a way to being stuck inside of a trap.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, so go to online.thefreedommodel.org and you can enroll.
All right. And now we just want to let everybody know again that Matt and Daniel will be carrying the torch on the Facebook Lives.
So I didn't look at the date, but it would be the first Wednesday in May.
It's the 4th.
It's the 4th. May the 4th.
May 4th.
Oh my
Let's go.
God, it's Star Wars Day.
How perfect.
With us.
I'm going to dress as Darth Vader for the episode.
And it's like Cinco de Mayo Eve. So it's like a super holiday.
Well, that would be like a Star Wars Mexican like
you could
thing.
do the whole thing.
Yeah.
We'll do it at like
Sombrero.
Margarita Happy Hour dressed as stormtroopers.
That's it.
That's it.
That'd be kind of weird, but
That would
yeah, I'm with you.
I'll probably get escorted from the premises.
That would be awesome. So everybody, you can if you're a member of the Freedom Model International, you can see Mark and I next Wednesday, 3 to 5. Within that, I think you'll be able to you go in there and you'll be able to click on it like a class.
Yeah.
And then you'll be in with it. We don't exactly know how
Yeah, we're
that's all
figuring
gonna
all
work
that out.
We're
She's just talking out the side of her mouth. We don't really have any idea what's going to happen. No, we do.
We will let everybody know.
I'm just making fun.
And then in 2 weeks, May the 4th, you will have Daniel and Matt answering your questions.
All right. It's exciting.
So thank you, everybody, and have a great evening.
Bye, everybody. Bye, Matt. Bye, Daniel.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.